Good morning, Neonish souls. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome in this beautiful snowy Monday morning. I hope you're listening to me while having your cup of coffee, and now sit comfortably and enjoy because we have wonderful subject. Just as I promised, it is obviously connected with pop culture. As you know, my approach to books, movies and games is quite specific. You know, I'm this one aunt in every family that ships people together, whether they want to be together or not, tells everyone around that they will be pair, and later on their weddings she is like, I tell you they will be together. So I wouldn't be myself if I haven't behaved like this also when it comes to pop culture. So, as you can know by now, today's subject is 10 pairings, of course connected with pop culture, that should be canon. I hope I won't get jailed for this podcast. Also, some of them make me question my sanity, but we will come to this later. Let's start with something that you all probably know because I have never heard about anyone who haven't seen Harry Potter movies or read the books. This particular pairing is something that I got to know thanks to fanfictions. These were very first fanfictions that I have ever read. And I started reading them because I was so sad about the fact that I've watched all the Harry Potter movies and read all the books and the stories ended for me. Oh, how wrong was I. How very wrong. Small disclaimer, if you don't like fanfictions, you just haven't come up on a good one. Okay, now let's get back to my pairing. Of course, it is Dramione. Draco and Hermione, of course, if someone doesn't know what it means. I don't know why is that, maybe this is the fact that I like the taste of forbidden fruits and all those Romeo and Juliet alike pairings, but I really love to see how the relationship evolves from the hate through sympathy, through friendship and then love. If it's well written, it is just pure pleasure to read and watch. I don't know any fanfictions written in English that I could recommend you here, but I know a few in Polish, so if you are a Polish speaker, just DM me and I will flood you with good Dramione fanfictions. What is funny about this one is the fact that it makes more sense when we watch the movies than when we read the books, because in books, Draco Malfoy was a very plain character. He was more like the rich, spoiled child with no harshly written character, but I really admire the thing that Tom Felton, the actor that played Draco Malfoy, did with him in movies, because he had made something like a multi-dimensional and very real person from this little spoiled boy who kept saying on and on, my father will know about this. And this is the very moment where Dramione is born, because when you will look at this like that, you will see that there are some connections between those two people which are growing up in the two Hogwarts houses that are hostile to each other. As I said previously, it is nothing more than another Romeo and Juliet story, the Muggle and the pure blood aristocrat. I really love this concept, especially according to the fact that Hermione was extremely skilled and powerful witch. Another pairing from Harry Potter that I would like to mention here is based on completely opposite relationship between two characters that I really can't believe wasn't included in neither movies nor books. I don't know how it is possible, because those two characters are so perfectly meant to be with each other at the very end that I just can't imagine how the authors and the scriptwriters didn't see this. Those are two outsider, somehow abandoned people that are not understood by their environment and society around them. Even their friends and the people from their houses don't know what are they coping with on a daily basis. Of course, the first one I'm talking about is Harry Potter, the main character, and the second one is Luna Lovegood. Apart from the fact that she is just a brilliantly written character that I hope had a bigger role in the whole Harry Potter series, the fact that they are so similar to each other cannot be ignored. If you have read and watched 5th part of Harry Potter series, The Order of Phoenix, closely, you will see how great this relationship development was portrayed in those movies. The connection between Harry and Luna is so visible that they are looking that they were really close without having a long period of relationship duration. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Harry seems to understand Luna and Luna Harry even better than Hermione and Ron does to Harry. That's why I really admire the scene when Luna and Harry went together to a Slughorn Snail Club party. Just remember, how did she dress like? That was so cute. I think this extraordinary friendship would have evolved in something really beautiful if those two characters had a chance to spend some more time together. Here I need to make a little digression because there were two another canon pairings that Harry was shipped with. Of course, I mean Cho Chang and Ginny Weasley, and the second one, the canon one with Ginny, makes me so sick. And it is not the fact that I don't like Ginny, because Ginny is a great character, but I feel so sorry for her to be so massacred in the movie adaptation. Like, pay attention to the fact that in books, Ginny is completely different person than in movies. In books, she is a social star, she's a great Quidditch player, she has multiple choice of boys, she is stubborn, fierce, and has a very characteristic behaviors. What she is in movies, I will leave it to you. The last Harry Potter shipment that I want to tell you about is of course Wolfstar, the ship between Sirius Black and Remus Lupin. For sure it is the most popular and well-proven shipment, including any of the Marauders, and it has so many evidences to be true that I even don't know where to start. When there comes to the first meeting of Lupin and Sirius on the Vision, the directors didn't know already how their relationship will be developing in the future. I've heard about this in some interview, I don't remember where now. So they said to the Gary Oldman and David Thewlis to play as they were couple. You can see that this extraordinary bond between them wasn't weakened with all the times they spent apart. Also, even their enemy Severus Snape tells that they are arguing like an old married couple. After that, in the Orders of Phoenix times, they're always together, always sitting close, always joking with each other. Even the Remadora shippers can agree on Wolfstar. Just notice the fact that she didn't try to get the Lupin's love before Sirius was away. She just respected this bond. She didn't choose to end their relationship. In this very moment, I'm feeling that this particular episode of podcast will be much longer than I firstly planned and much longer than another episode, but this subject is so rich in connotations that I just can't make it shorter. So now let's move to another pairing that should be canon, and we are moving from the Harry Potter series to something more cartoon-like, but no less adultish. What am I talking about? Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm personally a big fan of this franchise because it makes me feel like I was a child watching some cartoon on Sunday mornings and I have no problems, no company to run, no bills to pay, and just fantasy inside of my head about becoming a waterbender when I grow up. While I'm still waiting for my Hogwarts letter and my waterbending abilities to show, we will talk about my favorite pairing, which unfortunately is not included in the original cartoon. I am shipper of Zutara. It means Zuko and Katara. As a proud Zutara shipper, I am forced to stand the harassments from Ankh and Katara shippers because they really hate us. I don't know why, because we are right and they are wrong. On the face of it, it may look a little bit like Dramione, but when you will look closer, the situation is much more advanced. Zuko, the Prince of Fire Nation, on his way to restore his honor, goes through a really hard time which make him change into a completely brand new person, mostly thanks to his own hard work and a little bit thanks to his wise uncle Iroh, who is by the way the best character in all Avatar cartoon. But let's get back to Zuko. He starts from being a boy driven by the anger and fueled by the need of the approval of his father, and then he evolves into a man who is compassionate, who is sensitive, and who is strong and committed to his friends, family, and love. Paradoxically, the very similar change goes through Katara as well, because she starts as a little girl scared about her waterbending skills, about the power that she might possess, about bloodbending, and about memories of her mother dying. She is pert, smart, and childish, and kinda naive girl, which treats Sokka and Aang like she was their mother, not their sister and friend. But through the series she grows and develops, she becomes a woman. And this is the very moment when this man and this woman could meet, because sorry to tell that, but Aang didn't grow up. And at the end of The Last Airbender, Aang is still a little boy, which maybe he's more than 100 years old, but mentally he's still 12. I wouldn't be myself if I ignored in such a podcast my absolutely favorite pairing of all times from my absolutely favorite of all times books. Of course I mean Notre Dame de Paris and Fresmeralda. Funny thing, I firstly fell in love with the story when I was watching The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney adaptation, when I was a child. Then it made me to read the book and see another adaptations. For now my favorite is the musical, with the Canadian singer Garou in the role of Quasimodo, and another one, the TV, with Salma Hayek as Esmeralda, the gypsy dancer. I really admire what she does with this very naive person who was Esmeralda in book. She makes her strong and independent woman who knows what she wants. She is very mature and I love that. But why do I think the Frollo and Esmeralda pairing could work? It's because in book they were both very young and very naive. It is a little bit a spoiler, but how the story is portrayed in the movie has nothing to do with the original story from the book. Beloved man of Esmeralda, Colonel Phoebus de Chateauper, wasn't entirely the good guy. He was engaged to the fleur-de-lis, a very rich aristocratic lady, which hated Esmeralda for her beauty and devotion to Phoebus. The man himself wanted Esmeralda only as a tool to fulfill his own lust, so it isn't entirely a good way to make a perfect pairing. If you haven't read the book, you can also think about why don't I ship Esmeralda with Quasimodo? Because in movie this pairing would be a really good shot. Unfortunately, in book, only feeling that Esmeralda has for Quasimodo is the scare. She is just afraid of him and nothing more. The other thing is the fact that Quasimodo's only and ultimate love is Notre Dame, the cathedral, not any person, not even Frollo. And it should definitely stay like this. Funny thing, the obvious villain from the movie, Frollo, is one of the greatest and most good characters in book. Of course, he has an obsession over Esmeralda and the gypsy, this is the fact, and this is the worst part of his personality, but there is another person who makes Frollo more human than he is in all of the adaptations. Who am I talking about? His younger brother, John Frollo. In book, he's just a scamp, good for nothing and yet so charming, he can always make severe Frodo smile. He always asks him for money and the help to get away from his problems that he previously made himself. Frollo is also a great scientist and researcher. He meets a lot with another scientists, work at Nicolas Flamel's works, and he's on his way to find out how to make gold. By the way, this is a very popular subject in the literature of this century. Frollo was very orderly and disciplined, he had always everything well planned, he was prepared, sophisticated, and devoted to his studies and works. His faith in God was very deep, he was very conscientious to being Archdiacon of Notre Dame de Paris. He had only one weak spot, and those weren't even gypsies, those were women. He was just a misogynist, nothing more. There is a fragment in Victor's Ego book about it, which proves how far did he come on this way. He even didn't let one of the very important women in country, she was a princess or a duchess as I can remember, because he didn't tolerate any women in a particular part of Cathedra. He is even described to be very angry about just hearing the sound of a female skirt. The author explains it just because he was very young when he became priest and he didn't let himself to get to know any woman as a human being, as a friend, as a partner or as a lover. He just didn't understand them, he was afraid of them. And this is the moment when Esmeralda goes into the scene. She is just a teenager which loves to dance and is traveling with gypsies all around Europe. She isn't aware how obsessed Frollo is with her, she is just enjoying her life, light as a bird on the sky. What is the greatest potential of this relationship that never happened is the fact that they can truly change each other. They can make each other develop and grow. She may show him how to enjoy life and how to stop being scared of women because they're not dangerous to him, and he can teach her something about his science and how the real life looked like. Unfortunately, this relationship with all the adaptations and original stories kinda toxic, and what is left of it is just the vibe of forbidden love that I've mentioned earlier dozens of times. It's not the fact that I don't like the taste of it. I do. So now let's move from the late medieval centuries to something more current. Have you watched House of Cards series with Kevin Spacey as Frank Underwood? This is one of a very few series that I find better than their book original, especially when there comes to excellent actor play of Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright in the main characters' roles. Who fits perfectly to this power triangle is Russian President Petrov, played by Lars Mikkelsen, who made an absolutely stunning creation, Russian coldness, distance, mystery and power. I love how he values Claire even more than Frank. In this particular pairing, there is no more and less important side. The magnetism between them based on the even fight of dominance is so vivid and well played that the heat is bursting from the TV screen. Just imagine it, they would be such a power couple, they could dominate the world with a little snap of their fingers. And if we're about to discuss pairings that are based on partnership and equality, I want to refer also to Geralt and Shani. As you all know by now, I'm total Witcher head, this one person that read all of books, played all of the games and watched all series. So I can't imagine this particular podcast episode without referring to Witcher series. If you've had any contact with one of the adaptations or the original ones, or just had a contact with the giant fandom, you probably know that main ships for Geralt is two sorceresses, Triss Merigold and Yennefer from Vengerberg. The problem is, both of them are toxic as hell. Personally, I'm team Yen, because I've read the books and in books this is the only ship that you can ship. But sometimes I really can't stand the amount of toxicity that is inside of this relationship. Disclaimer, I won't be talking about shipping Geralt with Triss because they can't be with each other. Because Triss did two unforgivable things. In the games, she used Geralt's amnesia for her own advantage and she didn't tell him about Ciri or Yennefer. And in books, she cheated on her friends, including Ciri, Geralt and Yennefer, to gain a political approval. Sorry, next. But this is the very moment where Shani goes on. Who is Shani? This is the redhead magician from Oxenfurt who has a thing for Geralt. Who doesn't have a thing for Geralt? But she is good to the heart, good to the bone, righteous and loyal soul. She is devoted to her vocation and job, and she is willing to give her beloved one all the best she can. I think they could find the great consolation in each other's arms. Now, if we are talking about Witcher's story, I have to mention my absolutely favorite pairing of all times, and this is between elven sage Avallac'h and Cyrilla, Zirael, the main character, apart from Geralt, of course. This is one of the places when I ship much older men with much younger women, but in this particular case, it is a little bit different than you could imagine. The story of Avallac'h is kinda sad. He was deeply in love with Lara Dorren, one of the grandmothers of Ciri. That was a platonic love because Lara Dorren escaped with a human and ended his dreams about happily ever after with her. He didn't get over this loss. After many years he was still remembering his love to Lara Dorren. What came then? Then came Ciri, the grandchild, which was very physically similar to the Lara Dorren ancestor. But apart from the looks, she had also her character. She was runaway trained, quicksilver and alive. She made a great contrast to the bitter, very old elven sage. This particular shipment is very similar to the Froland Esmeralda which I mentioned before. Now I'm sure you can see this as I see this. Analogical example of such shipment is in the Game of Thrones between Sansa Stark and Littlefinger, Petyr Baelish. Sansa Stark is one of my favorite characters of all Game of Thrones, and Petyr Baelish was a mysterious guy with who I had great expectations. Unfortunately, it is how it is. And everybody who have watched Game of Thrones know how was the last season, so we won't be talking about this disaster here on the air. But we can talk about characters themselves. Here we have very similar story, the platonic love between Petyr Littlefinger Baelish and Catelyn Stark, the mother of Sansa Stark. Unfortunately, Catelyn, just as Lara Dorren, didn't give Littlefinger any attention, and she got engaged to Ned Stark immediately after his brother's death. Due to the fact that Littlefinger Baelish was much younger than Catelyn Stark, it makes him more real-life partner to Sansa Stark. I personally love the scenes with those two. Her childish naivety and his sneakiness are great combined together because he is kinda, I would say, intimidated or even tongue-tied with her trust that she puts in him. I really love to observe their interaction and how they influence each other in changing into brand new developing characters. Okay, if you're still listening, you must be a great fan of Inkopodcast, and I want to thank you so much and invite you to the very last pairing of today's episode. I've mentioned books, I've mentioned movies, but I haven't mentioned only a game. This one game that is probably legendary by now. Of course, I'm talking about Skyrim. What is my favorite pairing from Skyrim? Of course, Dragonborn and Vilkas, but yet this is completely canon pairing as long as you have Hearthfire edition, because you can just marry this guy. And what we are discussing here are pairings that should be canon and aren't, so who I would like to see hand in hand with Dragonborn is Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak. This is really uncomfortable and unwise to have a crush on Ulfric Stormcloak because he is kinda a Nazi of Skyrim, and I really don't like this Skyrim for Nords vibes. But still he is a great military general and worthy opponent for General Tullius. I'm a real fan of this Civil War quest. How could we build a plot which involves those two and their relationship? That's easy. Just make Dragonborn non-Nord type, which will show Ulfric Stormcloak how much he loses when he screams Skyrim for Nords. Especially according to the fact that you can take his side even if you played not as a Nord but other race. And still, after fulfilling all the quests, you can make him an oath and become one of the Stormcloak generals. Who's the Nord in Skyrim now? Okay, that was a long one indeed. Your morning coffee is probably all drunk and you're sitting on the edge of your seat just waiting for me to end this episode of podcast. So thank you for listening and thank you for coming this far, and see you on next episode. What will it be about? I don't know, but I have great plans.